morning comes from the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30. You can read along with me, or you can listen to the parable as the first disciples did. Hear now these words, and let them change you. Jesus put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field, but while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slaves said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time, I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." Here are the ancient words. Let them be new to you. Let us pray. Holy One, let us see like you see. For your ways are not our ways, and your thoughts are not our thoughts. Amen. On March 11th, 2011, an earthquake measuring 9.0 on the Richter scale shook the little island of Honshu off Japan. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan, where they have recorded many earthquakes. The quake triggered a massive tsunami, which hit Japan's mainland just 50 minutes later, wiping out several coastal towns and traveling nearly 6 miles inland. That 40-foot wall of water slammed into the Fukushima nuclear power plant, triggering a catastrophic meltdown of 3 of their 6 reactors. And you thought you were having a bad day. Before it was all over, 500,000 people were killed and millions more lost everything. A 6-mile scar was left across the earth where nothing survived. The land was declared inhabitable. People were evacuated for miles around that spot. Between the flooding and the fires and the radioactive fallout, the landscape was toxic. It was burnt and barren. Nothing lived there. Until the daisies came back. For years after the disaster, daisies sprang up in the fields of Fukushima. Wildflowers, much like our dandelions here. Weeds, really. But their appearance brought the message of new life and hope and resilience. Of course, these first little flowers were a little bit off. They grew in clumps, all twisted and stunted and weird. Like some grew 2 flowers back to back on the same stalk, and others grew no stalks at all, just clumps of flowers on the ground. I mean, they weren't pretty, these scrappy little survivors. But man, were they beautiful. Man, were they beautiful growing there. Who gets to decide what is a weed and what is a wildflower anyway? Right? Who gets to decide? Did you know that there is no biological definition of a weed? There's nothing about any plant that makes it any weedier than any other plant. It's all a judgment call. According to Webster and Oxford and dictionary.com, a weed is any plant growing where it isn't wanted or desired or valued. That's all it takes, a judgment. This parable takes the love thy neighbor commandment to a whole new level. To love thine enemies. And that's a big step. That's a really big step. It's not easy. How do you start? According to Jesus, you start by not killing them. You start there. By not just taking them out and ridding yourself of everything you judge to be a weed. Okay, one day, you'll be able to bless those who curse you. You'll be able to pray for those who persecute you. You'll be able to fight for their rights and the well-being of their children. You will overcome evil with good, but for now, we'll start right there. We just won't take them all out. You can't rid yourself of enemies that way anyway, can you? You'll just make more. And in the meantime, you'll lose some of your friends. One pastor I know tells this story about his suburban lawn. His grass was so filled with weeds that his neighbors started to complain. So he called a professional lawn service to come in and take care of it. And they rejected him as a client because it was that bad. So he started asking around to find somebody who would completely remove the existing lawn and start over from scratch with fresh topsoil and new seed. But that project seemed to be cost prohibitive. Finally, an old farmer in his church gave him this advice. He said, "Don't worry about the weeds. Take care of the grass." He said, water the grass, mow the grass, fertilize the grass, take care of the needs of the grass, and the grass will take care of the weeds. So my friend took the farmer's advice, and he started doing everything he could to grow grass. He watered it and mowed it and fertilized it. He even started reading books about caring for grass. But you know what? Now he has the nicest lawn in his neighborhood. And that's the same advice Jesus gives in this parable. Don't worry about the weeds. Water the grass. Keep your focus on the good stuff and do your best to make that better. Because what you focus on, that's what will grow. So don't worry about the weeds, because listen, every field has some weeds. Every rose has some thorns. There's good and bad in everything, in every neighborhood, in every job, in every relationship, in every human heart. There's good and bad in everything. Focus on the wheat. Make the best you can of all the good stuff, and you'll get more of it. That's just the way it works. But you have to train your eye to see past the weeds. There's no perfect boss or partner or neighbor or friend or home or situation or time to begin. No person, place, or thing comes without bugs or briars. But you can destroy all that is good in them by constantly picking at the weeds. In the end, it's not our job to pull the weeds. If that's all you take away today, that's good enough. It's not our job to pull the weeds, and we do more harm than good when we try. It's not our job to judge one another. It's our job to love one another. We never get that right. I want to say it again. It's not our job to judge other people or what they're doing. It's our job to love them, which is harder. It is much, much harder. And if we would just focus on that. It's a lot harder if we've already decided that they are our enemy. And we can't even begin to love someone until we stop judging them. Mother Teresa said, when you judge someone, you don't have any time left to love them. But I think we judge them because it's easier. I think we judge because we don't want to take the time to love them. That would be harder. That would mean an investment on our part. So we don't take the time to love them or even judge them fairly. We're not very good at it. We rarely know what God is doing in their life. We don't know enough to make an informed call. You don't know what kind of rocky soil they grew up in. You don't know what kind of hardships they had to overcome just to survive. You don't know what it has cost them to be standing where they are today, or what God will do with their lives in the future. For all you know, God may be planning to use their life to speak of new life and hope and resilience and the transformation of the weeds. Don't worry about the weeds. Focus on growing wheat. Another great teacher, Ram Dass, had this to say about how our judgments divide us. When you go out into the woods and you look at trees, you see all these different trees. And some of them are bent, and some of them are straight, and some of them are evergreens, and some of them are whatever. And you look at the tree, and you allow it. You see why it is the way it is. You sort of understand that it didn't get enough light over there, so it turned this way. And you don't get all emotional about it. You just allow it. You appreciate the beauty of that tree. The minute you get near humans, you lose all of that. You're constantly saying, you're to this, or I'm to that. Your judgment mind comes in. So I practice turning people into trees, which means appreciating them just the way they are. This week, brothers and sisters, let us all practice loving the people we are most tempted to judge. And don't worry about the weeds. Amen?